Hello to everybody. Thanks for joining us. I want to start just with how much of a privilege it's been to be the head coach of the Rochester Americans over the last 4 seasons. Such a storied franchise and so much history and tradition. And I think we did our best to uphold that standard that the fans in this organization expect. While we didn't win the ultimate prize in the Calder Cup, I'm incredibly proud of the things that we've been able to accomplish over the last 4 seasons, individually, collectively, winning playoff series for the first time in 2 decades, going to the Eastern Conference Finals, developing future NHL players, and tying for first in the North Division this year. This season didn't end how we wanted it to in the playoffs, but it was still an incredible season, full of a lot of good stories and good things that happen to the young men that are playing. So, in regards to the Sabres, I'm extremely excited to join Lindy's staff and be part of the Buffalo Sabres. Really looking forward to the opportunity to learn from a guy, a coach like Lindy, who's one of the winningest coaches in the history of our game. So much experience that I can draw from and learn from. And also for me, I love this organization. Thrilled to be part of the Buffalo Sabres organization. So many of that room has come through Rochester, and I've had the privilege to coach. I'm excited to continue that journey. I'll open it up to any questions.
Avs Game 5 ended Friday night. The announcement came out on Monday. Pretty quick turnaround. Can you sort of detail the process in terms of when this conversation first began?
Lindy and Kevin both had started contacting me, shortly after Lindy's hiring, and then the conversations just collectively evolved since then. A number of different conversations along the way, just making sure that I'm the right fit for what Lindy was looking for, that our vision in terms of how the game's supposed to play is aligned, and so it just kind of had a natural evolution from those first conversations leading up to the eventual.
You speak so passionately about Rochester. I'm curious, was it a home run for you instantly when you were asked to do this? Did you immediately say yes, or was there some thought?
There's always thought. I think that I've always been, I think if you look at my track record, I'm not a guy that jumps and just is a career jumper. I like to build things. I take a lot of pride in trying to create a culture and trying to build things the right way. And I'm incredibly proud of what we've been able to do here in Rochester, the way we've been able to do it. With that being said, this opportunity in particular, it was extremely intriguing. One, because I get the opportunity to work with a coach like Lindy, and I have a great staff, really good men, and that's going to be a fun room to be part of. Two, because I believe in Kevin. That's a big reason I joined the organization, probably the biggest reason I joined the organization 4 years ago, is I believe in Kevin, his vision, the kind of man he is, and the direction he's leading this organization. And I think that 3, getting to know the Buffalo family and Terry over the years gives me great confidence in the direction we have from the top. And what a great organization this is to be part of, what a great man he is to work for, the passion that he has for the Buffalo Sabres. And I think lastly is, it's to stay in the organization. Like, there's so many guys, and we've worked so hard. When Kevin hired me 4 years ago, this organization was in a tough spot. And we're not there yet. There's a lot of work to do, but we're a lot closer than we were 4 years ago. And I'm proud of that. And this is an opportunity with a lot of guys that I've coached along the way to try to help push us through on the Buffalo.
You were here for 4 seasons. You talked about wanting to build things. What do you think and hope you built here that the next head coach will be able to inherit?
Well, first of all, I inherited a lot of good things. Chris Taylor was a great coach and did a really good job. And so what I wanted to build is I wanted to build and create a culture that was family-oriented, where players, staff members, support staff members could walk in the door And they were embraced for who they were, not for who they weren't. And to create an environment that was competitive as heck, that was extremely hardworking, but that was fun and filled with joy and passion. And I believe we've created that. And now I think culture's not about one person. And if it's only about one person, then it's not culture. And so I think that we've created this culture, not me. And I believe that it can continue and sustain forward.
When you talk about culture and you use the term culture drivers with players off the ice, how much of a culture driver is Amir Gulati, and what do you think about him being become with you?
Yeah, that's incredible to get to go up to the National Hockey League and especially the Buffalo Sabres with Amir. He was basically a volunteer video coach in the East Coast League a couple years ago when his resume came across my desk and it said proud member of Bill's Mafia on the resume. Seriously, and that was a big reason I called him in the first place. Amir Gulati drips with positivity, energy, passion, love, and our players love him, and he loves our players. And so that'll be missed here, but that's also an amazing asset to bring to Buffalo. He and Justin will be a great team in that video room.
When you got here, I mean, obviously you knew about the Rochester Americans, but how long did it kind of take to grasp that what the organization meant? Because not every coach that's been here has, made sure players understood the banners and the passion of the fans. And maybe it comes easy when you have 1,000 fans following the Syracuse, but kind of how long does that take to grasp, and then pass on?
I think that certainly I was hired in weird times, right? So the COVID year was hard to grasp that. As much as you had heard it and you heard the stories and you talked to people that played here and you had fans, COVID was a different animal. So I would say it was sometime in that next year, that you started to see the fans come back. You started to see the energy. You started to see that was a really gritty team because our lineup was decimated. I think we had 54, 56 players play for us that year. And you saw the fans embrace how ugly we had to win at times because they knew we were fighting and scrapping for our lives, and they appreciated that. So those are important things. I would say also, one of the first things we did is create environment down below in the weight room, shooting room, video room, that there's banners down there. In our video room where we meet every day, there's all the Calder Cup banners. We just want to remind the guys that, it's about, a lot of times the American League, it's about their individual journey, but it's always more special if you can make the place a home on your way. And it's not just a stopover onto something else. And I give those early guys a lot of credit for that because it's one thing for me to try to preach that, but Jack Quinn and Pekka Luukkonen, Samuelson, Fitzgerald, Mersch, those early guys that were around in that first COVID year and then into that second year allowed me to coach how I want to coach and allowed us to help try to build what we were trying to build.
I know season just ended Friday. Have you had a second between this and the announcement to digest everything that you've been successful with? Not just you personally. I know it's always, like you said, it's a group, but what you've accomplished here.
No, I haven't had any time to digest it. I mean, Friday was miserable, right? You hate to be on the wrong side of Game 5. We found a way in the last 2 years in that same game, and we didn't. And this team did a lot of great things, and it was miserable to see it end. And having an inkling that it also might be the end for me here also made it, a little harder. So between that and then 32 exit meetings on Saturday and a staff dinner Saturday nights and then, the Buffalo, all of that, I haven't had a lot of time to digest much. Yeah.
When you walked off the ice, I got a shot of you just took a step back.
Well, I think I loved coaching. I absolutely loved coaching here, being an Amherst, and I'm so appreciative of my time here. I'm appreciative of the way the people here and the city, our fans have treated me and embraced me as one of their own. And I didn't know for sure if that was it, but I knew it might be. And I just, wanted to soak it in for a second.
Back in December, you coached Buffalo to the win over Columbus. How did that weekend and experience make your hunger for the NHL level that much stronger? And then how do you think about that now?
It's a really good question. I don't think it played into it though. That my passion for coaching isn't dictated by the level I'm coaching at. And now, fortunately, it gets me in the National Hockey League, and I'm extremely grateful for that. But I would have as much love and passion for coaching high school in Minnesota as I do for here or the National Hockey League. I love coaching. I love helping players get better. I love helping players try to chase their dreams. And so, to me, that's what I get most excited about.
And what's extra special about getting to join Lindy's staff in his first year and build that thing from the ground up, be a part of that?
Well, it's a great opportunity to come in at like you said, at the ground level. What a cool moment for Lindy in his coaching career to come full circle from where he started. Now gets to come and try to finish the job, so to speak. And so to have an opportunity to be part of that is wild and it's exciting. And like I said, also with how many of the players that I've coached here in Rochester, but also there has been circumstances, I think in 3 of my 4 years here in Rochester, that has led me to time up in Buffalo on top of training camp. And so I have a really strong familiarity with all their roster, not just the guys that came through Rochester.
I know coaching circles are pretty small. Have you had any interaction with Lindy before, or just kind of getting to know him over these past couple weeks here?
I had no interaction with Lindy before. And so it's just been a process of getting to know each other as people and as coaches and philosophies over conversations since then. There's a lot of people that we have in common and I'm sure, and I know Lindy's done his homework on me and called people that he's close with that have worked with me or played for me or whatever that is. And because that's what you do when you're going through a vetting process. So I followed him always because his style, his passion, his competitiveness, and his team style have always been things that I've admired and probably wanted in a lot of our teams. And so I always try to look at other coaches, whether it's in the NHL or in other sports, that are more my style, because I think you can learn a lot from that versus me watching somebody that isn't going to coach the way I coach.
How much can that help Lindy with such a familiarity with, a large group of guys you've worked with here in Rochester, but not only that, just working in training camp, just having a good sense of the roster that he's got there?
Well, I think that, even the conversation, I went up and met with him for a couple hours yesterday in person, and even those conversations of, instead of hiring an assistant that's coming in and has to get familiar with the roster, the talent, the competitiveness, the character, all of those things, I have intimate knowledge of a lot of that. And so that's beneficial for me, but hopefully I can be beneficial for Lindy in that regard as well.
Did any of those guys text you or reach out to you up there?
Yeah, a lot of guys yesterday. It was a pretty wild day. I don't know how many it was. It was like, I'd respond to one and he'd get 10 more. So it was in the 400s probably, but a lot of former players. And to me, that is what means the most. Certainly friends and family and other colleagues, but tons of former players from my days at Denver, from my days at RPI, from my days at the U.S. National Program, and from Rochester. But yeah, absolutely, Quinner and Sammy and JJ and those guys, a lot of the Sabers guys reached out, which was, I was appreciative of that. Kyle Okposo reached out. I thought that was incredibly classy. Not surprising because he's all class, but he's in the middle of a Stanley Cup playoff run right now, and I thought that was incredibly classy of him.
What was your daughter's reaction?
The daughters, Thank you for asking me that, and fellow girl dad, Duffer. My daughters were excited. Really excited for the opportunity. My youngest daughter is certainly, maybe is going to be a coach. Who knows? She's young, but I could see that in her future, just her personality. I love that they both knew how sad I would be to leave Rochester, though. And so that was cool because that means that they understand me and the things that I value.
Was there ever, and you expressed the ease and the desire with this opportunity because it was Buffalo, but was there ever a point where if you were focused on the next level, was it only as a head coach?
It's a good question. No, I think that, I have close friends that are coaches in the NHL that I lean on and talk to them about these types of things. Jeff Blashill and Derek Lalonde and John Cooper. And Blash had told me that at some point he thought that in the next couple of years, that I might need to go be an assistant in the NHL if I hadn't been hired as a head coach in the NHL. And I know it's hard to hire somebody from the American League to be a head coach in the NHL when they haven't been there before as a player or a coach. I understand that. So I'm always open to listening to opportunities, but I can say that I was never in a hurry to leave here because I know I've coached long enough to know how special this was in terms of the trust that Kevin and Jason had in me and what we had collectively built within our organization, front office and behind the scenes and players.
We've seen the videos of you over the years in the locker room telling people they got their call to the national. What was it like to be on kind of the other end of that this time?
Yeah, that was cool. For the players in Rochester, a lot of them, that's been my job to tell them that. And I think that is a special part of your job in the American Hockey League. And so for them to get to kind of have that moment with me, was really neat. There's a lot of guys, we always talk about the prospects here and Cooley and Rosie and, Levi and those guys, but there's a chunk of core guys here that have been with us for 3-4 years, and Mersch and Prow and Jobst and Byro and Murray, Weisbach, Rusek, that have meant a lot to Rochester and mean a lot to me. And so to share that with them, it was a neat experience.
When you were sitting, Weber and Becca go last year, were there opportunities for you? Did you throw your name in the hat anywhere, or were you saying, Kevin brought me here, I'm going to trust that he has a plan?
Yeah, I haven't ever had formal interviews with other organizations. Obviously, those have to get approved when I'm under contract by Kevin or Jason anyway. So, and I never was actively trying to chase down assistant jobs in the NHL. Kevin and I had a conversation about that last summer after our season ended. What did I want to do? Did I want to go after some of these assistant jobs? That potentially my resume would allow me to have a chance to get now because of some of our success in the American League. And it was I made it pretty clear to Kevin that if he wanted me to stay and continue on at Rochester, I was excited to stay here and to keep the work we were going. I still think that, there's a lot of young prospects again this year. There's going to be a lot of young prospects again the next 2 years, and the team's going to continue to be incredibly young, which is a challenge in the American League, but it's a fun challenge and a challenge I've embraced. So I wasn't actively pursuing.
What are you looking forward to most in an assistant's role in the NHL? Like on a game night on the bench, but even on a game night in general, what do you think it's going to be like, and what are you most excited about?
I think what I'm excited about as an assistant is I've only been an assistant 3 times since I became a head coach, and they were under 18 World Championships for John Robleski, and then 2 times at the Men's World Championships for Jeff Blashill. And what's interesting is I think going back and being an assistant now after the time I've had as a head coach, I was a way better assistant. When I was an assistant and never had been a head coach, I had no clue what George Gwiazdecki was going through. I didn't know all of the stress and the pressure and the other things pulling at him behind the scenes. And, you know, in college, it's not management, it's athletic directors, presidents, fundraising, boosters, all these different things. And you don't understand that until you've sat in that chair. And so I think I'm excited that I can be a better assistant now than I've ever been before because of the experience I've had as a head coach and understanding what Lindy is going through. And then what I'm excited about is I'm a head coach that spends a lot of time with our players, but you are pulled in a lot of different places in different ways as a head coach. And so now I just get to invest more time into our players, into relationship building and trying to help their careers.
Between the banner and guys going up to the NHL, what are you most proud of your 4 years here in Rochester?
I'm proud of a lot. You know, the guys we've developed, winning the North Division, but I think mostly how we did it. To me, that is, and I am so grateful to our players for allowing me to coach how I coach. I'm incredibly hard on them. I'm very demanding of them, but I do it in my own way. And I, you know, I think that you can only coach how your players allow you to, right? And so I'm grateful for the guys that we've had that have embraced me for the way I coach, and allowed us to do it how we've done it.
Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, Seth. I know that the power play is going to be one of your main responsibilities in Buffalo. What's your reaction to the personnel that you're going to have to work with in that specific area? And generally, what makes a successful power play given the way that penalty kills have evolved and really adapted to the way that a lot of teams have tried to score on the man advantage over the last, however many years?
Yeah, so I'm excited about the opportunity. Obviously, the talent that resides on the Sabres power play is immense. And they've had some success and they've had some struggle, and that's part of it. But I know already talking to Lindy, and I love this because this is how I've operated. It's going to be collaborative. You know, at the end of the day, am I going to probably go run the meeting? Yes. But behind the scenes, are we going to work together? Absolutely. Just like we did here with our staff, with Mersey and Pex and Vinny running the power play. Just like with Webby and Pacer running the penalty kill. I love that Lindy coaches very collaborative. That's something I was very excited about, that we're not over in our little silos and you just taking care of that area. To me, one of the main things how you succeed in the power play is you have net presence. Net presence, it allows you to create chaos. And so if there's no net presence, you're at the mercy of trying to score these highlight reel goals that look great the next morning on NHL Network, but aren't consistent and don't come all the time. And so net presence to me establishes a shot mentality and an attack mentality. And then when you have an attack and a shot mentality, you have a chance to get the penalty kill out of structure. And if you just pass along the perimeter, penalty kills get to stay in structure, especially if they're in a diamond, and they get to be comfortable in their structure. When you shoot and have an attack mentality, you get them out of structure with puck movements, shooting, or player movements. And then when you get them out of structure, now skill and creativity can take over, but the first thing you need to do is get them out of structure, and that's how I believe you do it.
Yeah, my last question is you mentioned that Blash had told you recently, hey, at some point you might have to become an NHL assistant to take that top job. I'm just curious, your conversations with Kevin, in what way did I guess that he frame it to really convince you, that you could be part of the solution in Buffalo and you could really have a hand in helping, these guys reach that next level?
Well, I think first it's the conversations with Lindy, because Kevin and I have a strong relationship that's built over time, but Lindy also needed to want me to be there, right? And to me, that's the key thing, is that Lindy and I start to have that synergy and that connectivity that coaching staffs need to have be successful. Kevin knows how much I believe in the direction of the organization. And so he talked about Lindy and him talked about not only me coming up, but then having a prominent role on the staff when I come up. And I said to Lindy and to Kevin, as excited as I am to be in the NHL and more excited to be with the Buffalo Sabres, The biggest reason I'm saying yes is I believe in the men in that room. I know those players. I know what's inside of them. I know the guys I've coached, but I know a lot of the other guys pretty well too. And I have a high belief of what's inside that room, and that's something that really excites me.
Thanks, Seth.
Go ahead,
Hi,
Michael.
Seth. Congratulations. Welcome to the National. Tell me this a little bit. In the series against Syracuse, we saw a lot of attention paid to Yuri Kulik as your top goal scorer, and it was a struggle for him. It was a little reminiscent of what I think Jack Quinn went through against Laval. What is your takeaway of Kulik's series, and what can he learn from that going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you're right. It's funny. It's very similar to Quinn against Laval in that year, and probably some of the Utica series as well, where Quinn was doing a lot of good things and pucks weren't going into net. Yuri Kulik did a lot of good things for us in those 5 games. Pucks didn't go in the net for him in this series. Some of that due to how great defensively Syracuse was. Some of that due to, I think, he forcing it a little bit. I think he started the series putting too much pressure on himself that he needed to be better than he was last year for us because we don't have as much around him. He's more of a go-to guy even than he was last year. So now that's a good learning lesson for him that's never a way mentally to start a series. Then you struggle a little bit in games 1 and 2, and now you're gripping it a little bit. Now you're chasing it a little bit. And, you know, what I like is he was recognizing this and self-processing it along the way and making adjustments as myself and Vinny were having conversations with him. But that's part of development, and it sucks to lose. But development is rarely just like this and everything's great all the time. You look at Jack Quinn. Jack Quinn didn't have a great American League playoffs. Well, not many 19, 20-year-olds do. And that adversity, like Quinn's adversity, that COVID year, those 20, 25 games he played, that fuels your growth. That put Jack Quinn on a mission over the summer to change that. And the same is going to be with Yuri Kulik. He knows that this playoffs wasn't his best. He knows the feeling now of being a first-line center, the go-to guy with the target on you. And some of that failure is going to fuel his growth over the course of this offseason.
And I have one other question for you. I wanted to just go back to something you said after Game 5 about how the process of a season has to start completely at the bottom. You can't pick up from where you finished against Hershey. And those of us who cover the Sabres pretty much think they felt they were just going to pick it up from the last 10 games of last season, and it didn't work out that way. What was your sense in training camp and just about the feeling in the organization? Was there a feeling that they had arrived, and now how much motivation is there more when, you know, they've clearly had a step back season and now have to, you know, find that plane again?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to comment on that because I am at training camp and I'm a part of training camp, but that's not my team. And I'm not running that room and feeling that every day. I did wonder though if we would have been better off making it by a point and then maybe losing to a physical heavy team and having to learn those lessons. You know, and then the next year you have the chip on your shoulder because of that. It's hard to know for me because I'm not in that room all the time. But I definitely know that is going to be there from this past year, from the failure of this past year, and the drive that group's going to have under Lindy heading into the start of next year.
Thanks, Seth.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Bill.
Hi, Seth. Congratulations. I was just wondering what you thought of Izak's season as far as, you know, he had a fast start, he got the NHL, he had that big slump, and then by the end he had rebounded. I was wondering just what you thought of how he, you know, we've talked about how he's evolved into more of a two-way threat, but just your feelings on the growth and what he endured this season.
I thought Isak had an excellent season. I think his slump was only a scoring slump, not a play slump. He was one of our most dependable, consistent, competitive players night in, night out, all season long. Like you said, Still tied for a scoring lead in the regular season. So that's impressive enough at 20 years old, turning 21. Not easy to do. And then on top of that, became one of our best defensive wingers, earned the right and the opportunity to be out there 5-on-6, and usually my first choice going out 5-on-6, and became one of our best penalty killers. And that's just massive growth for a guy that was considered to kind of only be an offensive player 2 years ago. And that's what you need, because there's not a lot of spots open in the NHL, not only the Sabres, but in the NHL in general, in everybody's top 6. And a lot of times you have to break in, being a middle 6 or a bottom 6, and then you have to do all those other things we're talking about. And then you can potentially show and play your way, once you do that, into a top 6 role. And I think Isak is on a great trajectory of that. And now he needs to attack this summer and keep changing his body, right? And keep adding more strength and power and explosiveness.
It's as far as Joseph Ciccone goes. I mean, he played big minutes again for you in the playoffs. I mean, I guess he's 27. What has he kind of evolved to over, 5 or 6 years in the AHL? What has he kind of become now, in your opinion?
I think he's starting to, over the time with us, and I can't speak to the time before, but I think there's always a hope in a young player that you're a little more offensive, and maybe there's power play in your future and things like that. And I think he's really embraced this physical, competitive, stay-at-home defenseman that's hard to play against, that's easy to play with, that plays against the other team's top lines, and makes the game hard on him. And I think he's seen that playing that style has grown his role, has grown his minutes, has grown his responsibility in the American Hockey League. And I think he's still at his age, even though he's getting into his middle 20s, he's still growing. He's still getting better. He got better in his year and a half with us. And that excites me about where he can still go.
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Joe.
Seth, congratulations.
Thank you.
What similarities are there in the way you like to coach and the style that you've coached and what you have with Lindy? And also, what's it going to be like for you to have to step back and no longer be the head coach and be an assistant again?
So first, the similarities of Lindy. The first conversation, was really easy. Fast, north, direct, get to the net more. Those are things that I preach and believe in at a high level. We were speaking the same language in the first conversation. He asked me what are some of the things I harp on here right away with our young prospects. And you guys have seen development camp when I've run it, puck battles and angling. And because if you can't win a puck battle and you can't force a turnover, it doesn't matter how skilled you are, because we never have the darn puck, right? And so, and as soon as I said puck battles and angling and forcing turnovers, again, like we were speaking the same language right away. So I think that stylistically, like systems are systems, and we'll get to that at some point as a staff, but stylistically, he and I are very connected on identity and the style that we want the Buffalo Sabres, that he wants the Buffalo Sabres to play. So that excites me. In terms of stepping back and being an assistant, I'm excited for it. I have people I lean on. I've had athletic directors and now Jason and Kevin to pick their brains and to lean on. But I haven't had like a mentor per se since I was an assistant at Denver under George Gwozdecky. And so be able to be underneath a guy like Lindy, who's had this vast wealth of experience at a level that I haven't, and how much he's won, the success that he's had, I'm really excited about that. And I've always been a guy that is always, my ego is about the team and about winning as a team. And so I'm excited to have the opportunity to go back and be an assistant.
Thanks, Seth.
One more, if you don't mind. Did you, just like actors, I guess, get typecast, did you worry, or did anyone you talked to say that, you've been a development coach and that might be the mold that people see you in?
That's a good question. My dad's asked me that. He's like, is that a concern of mine? That between the national program and your college time and here that you've had success developing, is that, you're worried that that's a niche? I've never worried about it because my theory and philosophy has never been to have this master plan or 5-year plan or any of those things. It's been to be great where you're at and try to excel in the role that I'm in. And right now, over the last certain number of years, it's been more developments, but also winning. And so I've always believed that if you just try to be great where you're at and treat people the right way where you're at, things will take care of themselves.
Will you miss being in front of the microphone?
Not when Moss Brooks is running the press conference. No, I won't.
Might you volunteer on days when Lindy doesn't really want to talk to you?
That's all. The beauty of that now is that's all for Lindy to decide, and I just get to sit back and coach the players, which is going to be awesome.
With what you said about developing guys, in the parts of your career that you're through, how do you think that's going to help you now at the NHL level? Take maybe some good NHL players and ascend them to like some of the best players in the world.
Well, I think that development doesn't stop because you get to the National Hockey League, and players need to constantly, and the players are like they're at that level for a reason. It's not because they're complacent. They're always tinkering. They're always trying to add a thing to their game over the summer or in the season, and so that's something I've been incredibly proud of. Here is we've had career years from Prow, Jobst, Mersch, our older contingent of guys. That just proves to me that getting better in development isn't all about being a young player. Everybody has the chance to get better, and I'm excited to try to help our guys up in Buffalo do that.
Perhaps if you could photograph one memory of your 4 years here, what would it be?
That's a hard question. A couple that stand out would be Game 5 in Syracuse, Game 5 in Utica, Game 3 here at home in Toronto. Those are, off the top of my head, but there's also this game at home against Providence the second year when our lineup was completely decimated and guys were driving in from all parts of the country from the East Coast League to get here, introducing themselves on the way into the locker room. We had a guy warming up in the parking lot. We were waiting for his COVID test to come in. We had a bartender as a backup goalie. And that one, and we made the playoffs by 1 point that year, and we won that game that night. So those are memories that I'll always cherish. But realistically, for me, the memories I'll have the most are the bus rides back with the guys after a big win and them singing country songs and yucking it up in the back and what the locker room feels like after they give everything to each other. To me, that's what it's all about.
Who's the backup goalie?
Brian Howdy. He was a bartender at Tony D's restaurant and played at Geneseo Division III. And he backed up, I think, twice for us that year. Yeah.
Has he served you?
No.
One last thing to do before we leave Rochester.
Good.
Everybody else?
Thanks, guys.